Welcome back. We're going to talk a little bit more about the CIP model. Last time I kind of hit on the three main components here. I'd like to talk more about the processes that actually transform the information as they move along. That would be what happens in between here mainly on these arrows. And we're going to look at an example to kind of help us move this along. The example is the one that's given in Driscoll's book. She talks about a young reader, a novice reader, elementary school student, and she's reading a story about a small village, and she comes to this sentence here. Visitors to the town are always struck by the beauty of its wide, azalea-lined avenues. Okay, so when Sarah first reaches this sentence, several things are happening. Things from her sensory memory, first of all. It's very a visual type phenomena where she notices things like the pattern recognition of the letters and of the words as they form together, and she makes a representation of this. And at this point, attention begins to play an important role. Perhaps she's reading along and she gets to the word azalea. Maybe she's young, she doesn't know what an azalea is, so this might slow her recognition down just a bit because she doesn't recognize this word. Now, from the context, she may be able to figure out that it has something to do with something being along the side of the road. She may figure out it's some type of plant or flower. But because it's new information, not easily recognizable, this is going to cause her to pay a little more attention to this, and it's going to slow down the speed of her processing. But attention and pattern recognition will move this over to working memory. Several things going to happen here. First of all, it's going to take on meaning here. This is where she's actually going to retrieve from long-term memory the definitions of some of the words that she knows. She'll pull those over there. Any grammar that she needs to know in terms of how the words in the sentence are related to each other by structure. So all of that will be retrieved from long-term memory. It's like a program that will be loaded onto the random access memory for her to be able to use it. She may have to do some type of internal rehearsal if it's a long sentence or complicated sentence or has a lot of new information. She may need to rehearse it over, read it a couple of times to kind of get it solid there. But one of the main things she's going to need to do is encode this in some way so that it can go over into long-term memory. It needs to go into long-term memory in some form because as she continues to read the story, she needs to remember this information in the sentence that she's just read. If she doesn't do that in some form, she'll forget the sentence that she's read previously when she reads the next sentence, and that won't give her much coherency to the story. Okay, at this point you can see that something is happening. The information is not just flowing from left to right. The information is also flowing from right to left. She is retrieving some information from long-term memory in order to help her accomplish pattern recognition and to achieve meaning for the words that she's reading. So this is what I talked about the other day when I talked about bottom-up processing versus top-down processing. Bottom-up processing is based on the incoming information, the data being processed. That's bottom-up. It's starting here from the very small elements, recognizing, putting them into patterns, chunking them, and then of course top-down would be using information that we already know, prior knowledge, to help us interpret or achieve pattern recognition. Pattern recognition is based on the data coming from this direction, but also from any patterns or templates or prototypes, etc., that we have coming from this direction in order to help us achieve. So there's a bit of both. There's some bottom-up and there's some top-down processing going on at the same time. Another important thing to mention here is that all of this is under the control of a system known as executive monitoring system, or some people call it the executive control system. Basically, there's a manager, there's a system up here that manages all of this. It takes care of things like information flow, if there's any conflicts, if there's a breakdown of some sort that needs to be resolved or repaired. It looks at the allocation of resources such as attention and makes decisions about where attention is going to be shifted to. One thing to point out about this executive control system is it can be conscious and strategic, particularly if you're dealing with new information and unfamiliar context. This type of control and monitoring and management of the system can be very much under your conscious strategic control. However, as we go through and achieve a higher level of education, we get accustomed to doing things. It becomes automatic, and it can be very unconscious. Okay, we can do a lot of this without even realizing that we're doing it. It's just become habitual.